That's the first item on the agenda, SB 1134. Please proceed when you're ready.
Thank you, Mr. Chair and members, for the opportunity to present SB 1134. SB 1134 requires the Department of to follow the Administrative Procedure Guidelines when promulgating Surplus Land Act guidelines. Last year, I authored SB 747 to clarify and improve the SLA process by adding a definition of surplus land disposal, creating additional categories of exempt surplus land and additional activities that constitute an agency's use. One of the things that we discovered is that local government was having a really hard time determining whether the property that they sought to get rid of was subject to the Surplus Land Act. And as a consequence, they were just sitting on property that could be moved and utilized either for affordable housing or for economic development for the community. This bill and its partner, AB 480 by Assemblymember Ting, struck a balance to provide necessary clarity to ensure local governments disposing of land were doing so correctly under the provisions of the SLA. The Department of Housing and Community Development is responsible for drafting guidelines to implement this, including changes that were recently made. The department currently enjoys an exemption from the Administrative Procedure Act when promulgating the SLA guidelines. And we left it, although this was an extensive negotiation process, we continued to allow them to do their regulations through an emergency regulations. The APA is an integral democratic tool requiring regulations to undergo a thorough public review process. It also requires the Office of Administrative Law to review the regulations for clarity and legal conformity with the law. After the passage of SB 747 and AB 480, the Department of Housing and Community Development proposed draft revisions to their Surplus Land Act guidelines. The draft guidelines, unfortunately, go beyond the statute in numerous ways to make significant policy changes not consistent with recent legislation. In some cases, the changes are plainly contrary to the statute or the explicit legislative intent that we had in our bills. Over the fall, I met with HCD to discuss this concern, that the guidelines were not reflective of what we intended. Discussions continued into the spring, but based on the draft guidelines that were released, I'm concerned that the final guidelines will not be reflective of our legislative intent. I have been transparent this year with the Senate committee, and SB 1134 was to serve as the vehicle to monitor the final guidelines proposed by HCD to ensure that the agreements reached between the two bills that we passed and the stakeholders are faithfully adopted. However, given legislative deadlines, I believe the best option for ensuring that HCD does what they're supposed to do is to require it to go through the Administrative Procedure Act. By requiring them to do this, SB 1134 ensures that there is an unbiased third party outside of the legislature and HCD, the Office of Administrative Law, to review these guidelines for their legal validity. The APA process would also ensure a thorough public review process in which all questions and concerns with the guidelines are heard and addressed before they are adopted by the department. And obviously, that's local government has the input to look at these. So I'm going to continue working with these organizations who have a supportive, if amended, position because of a drafting error. And I'll also work with the committee to clarify which guidelines would be in effect if the bill becomes law.
Thank you, Senator. Before we proceed with your witnesses, I just want to welcome Assemblymember Sanchez to Local Government Committee. Welcome. Please, your first witness.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. My name is Aaron Avery. I'm the Director of State Legislative Affairs with the California Special Districts Association. CSDA represents over 1,000 local governments using their lands to provide essential services from water to wastewater to electricity, fire protection, libraries, and parks. We currently hold a supportive amended position on the bill, and we appreciate the author's intention to correct an error, a drafting error in Section 2 of the bill. With that said, we thank the author for bringing forward this important bill and respectfully request your aye vote today, as this represents two priorities that we believe the legislature shares. First, affordable housing fundamentally depends on affordable infrastructure and affordable services to California residents. Local agencies need accurate, consistent, predictable implementation to support that infrastructure. And secondly, the SLA is intended to promote transparency and accountability. It deserves to be implemented in a transparent and accountable manner. SB 1134 promotes these two priorities, and I want to thank the author and her staff for her commitment to this important issue, and I want to thank the committee and Ms. Rios as well for their time and attention. The SLA serves as an important purpose, but it is hyper-technical and complex. Because of this, stakeholders from both sides have carefully crafted good faith compromises throughout the article. Notwithstanding these efforts, the changes to the SLA over the past 5 years have imposed a significant and evolving change to local government operations. Implementation of a law as important and sweeping and technical as the SLA merits an open and public process with standard rules of the road. We wholeheartedly support the application of the APA to the SLA rulemaking process, and we believe this change will foster good faith negotiations, collaboration, transparency, and less conflict, hopefully. Again, we want to thank the author and her staff for their hard and tireless work on this issue, and respectfully ask for your aye vote today. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Members, Jean Hurst here today on behalf of the urban counties of California, representing the state's 14 largest counties. Also testifying in support on behalf of my colleagues at the California State Association of Counties and the Rural County Representatives of California. Here today, as my colleague mentioned, with a supportive amended position on Senate Bill 1334. Local agencies continue to be challenged by the implementation of carefully negotiated language in the Surplus Land Act in numerous bills over the last 5 years, requiring the Department of Housing and Community Development to utilize the APA process will provide important opportunities for stakeholder input in the spirit of transparency, clarity of the law, and improved understanding of implementation requirements. Urban counties agree that clarity in the implementation of the SLA statutes are critical to ensuring the effective disposition of local agency land and appropriate consideration of the potential to build much-needed affordable housing. We greatly appreciate Senator Caballero's steadfast commitment to getting this right and respectfully request your aye vote today.
Thank you. Before we continue with more witnesses, we reach a quorum. So, Secretary, please call the roll.
Carrillo.
Present.
Carrillo present. Waldron.
Here.
Waldron present. Sanchez.
Present.
Sanchez present. Haney. Calra.
Here.
Calra present. Pacheco. Ramos.
Here.
Ramos present. Ward. Wilson.
Thank you. With that, we'll continue with witnesses in support. Please state your name, organization, and position on the bill.
Thank you. Mr. Chair, members, Michael Gunning, Lighthouse Public Affairs, here in support on behalf of Habitat for Humanity California. Thank you.
Thank you. Seeing no other witnesses in support, are there any primary witnesses in opposition? Witnesses in opposition? See someone coming this way. No one in opposition. With that, I take it back to the committee. Any questions, comments on what's in front of us?
Sorry. Oh, he wanted to.
Just as a
Oh, I'm sorry. I thought you said no. Go ahead.
thank you, JT Hirschmack with Nonprofit Housing Association of Northern California. We have concerns about how the bill would impact the implementation of current HCD guidelines as they are being drafted right now. But other than that, we really appreciate the author and her staff, their open line of communication and discussing the implementation details. Thank you.
Thank you. Is there anyone else? We had a motion to move the bill, and I believe we had a second. Madam Chair, please. Oh, I'm sorry. Would you like to close, Senator Caballero?
Respectfully ask for your aye vote.
So thank you for presenting your bill today, and thank you and your staff for making a commitment to continue working with the stakeholders and committee moving forward. The motion is due pass to the Appropriations Committee. Secretary, please call the roll.
SB 1134 is a due pass to appropriation. Carrillo.
Aye.
Carrillo, aye. Waldron.
Aye.
Waldron, aye. Sanchez.
Aye.
Sanchez, aye. Haney. Calra.
Aye.
Calra, aye. Pacheco. Ramos.
Aye.
Ramos, aye.
Thank you.
Ward. Wilson.
Looks like the bill is out 5:04 now, but we'll leave the roll open for others to add on. Thank you,
Thank you
Senator.
very much.
Thank you.
Thank